Welcome to the Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about a Linux project, such as a Linux distribution, a desktop environment, or could be an application. We also chat about the news and any variety of topics from the community. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, a Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. And with me today, I've got Eris, Sravan, White Chocolate, Colin, Jinda, and Terry. Welcome. Glad you could be here. How are you all this evening?
Good.
Excellent.
Awesome. I can just feel the excitement just pouring through the Zoom window here. So I'm so glad you're all here. So coming up, we're going to do our distro exploration of Alpine Linux. Check out what's on the menu for next week. Do News Flight, our last call. But first, what have you been doing in tech? Sravan, you reached out to me earlier today, and I'm really excited that you're going to be a father.
That's a really, really bad joke.
Well, I try.
Yeah, what I did last week was adopt two AUR packages. So
you're adopting AUR packages, not small children.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
I totally misread your message. I'm sorry.
So again, as people know, AUR stands for Arch User Repository, so it's a user maintained. So when a package isn't maintained for a while, other users can flag it and it becomes orphaned. So that's where the adoption comes from. So
okay. All right. So you did adopt an orphan.
Yeah,
you have a
but
picture?
It's an orphan package.
You have a picture?
Got a picture.
So like I was just going through AUR like last week. I was looking through some packages which were not maintained anymore, which I sort of use. And then I wanted to see if I could like adopt them. So adopting was very easy. You just need an AUR account, and if a package is orphaned, you can just click on adopt. That's it. And then you need to configure your SSH keys in the AUR settings, and then git clone. That's it. And then git push. So maintaining, like, if you want to push changes to AUR, is as simple as cloning the AUR repository and then pushing it. So you'll have push access only if you have rights to that package, obviously. So which I got by adopting it. So yeah. So the first package I found was Snapper Get. Again, I use Snapper on my Butterface systems. I generally use the one which is in the repo. I thought, okay, this is abandoned. Let me adopt it. So it was probably abandoned a while ago. So the package build was totally outdated. So I had to totally revamp it. It took a little bit of time. It was fun, like changing that and then pushing the changes. And then now people have access to like Snapper Get. And then the second package which I adopted was Mate Tweak. I run Mate on my Raspberry Pi and I've been running it since May. It's really good experience for me running a GTK. I generally don't like GTK based environments. I try to run mostly Qt based environments like KDE and LXQt, but I tried Mate for a week, like in May. I was like I really liked it, the vintage look at the bit of theming which you can do. So Mate Tweak is a tool which allows you to tweak some settings, but it was outdated in the AUR. So I used to use Mate Tweak Kit because the Mate Tweak one was outdated. So I was like, let me adopt this one because I use it anyways. So this needed like minor tweaks, like updating the source version from Ubuntu's Git repositories and other stuff. And also there were some changes in the comments actually suggesting the original maintainer to improve the package build. So there generally sometimes you find comments in AUR, like suggestions in AUR comments, like if you do this, you can improve this package. So I actually took some of those comments and then changed the package build and found, okay, this is better. This is a better way to do stuff. And then I made those changes again. Simple, like you make you git clone, you make the changes in the package build file, and then just push the commit. So simple git pull, git push. And one more thing you have to note is that you have to update the source info. So that's what's different from when you normally build packages locally. because this source info file is used by, it contains the information about the package, the version number, etc., which are used by AUR helpers to know if a package is being updated or not. So that's the source info file. I forgot to update it sometimes. So I then had to like do another git push to like generate the source info file and update it. So yeah, this was a little bit of fun. Just wanted to get involved in the Arch ecosystem. I generally don't go there, but it was a little bit of fun doing this. And also, like, I maintain packages for Endeavor's repo, but the way we do things is a little bit less formal. And if it's an AUR, other people are using it, so we have to make sure that it's done well. It's just an extension of work which I've been already doing, so it wasn't that hard for me because I already maintain packages and package builds for like 3-4 months now, so I got used to that. But just the source info thing and actually getting user input is, the community aspect is different in like involving with the AUR.
Well, that's very cool. How many hours would you say you have invested in these two packages now? And is one more complicated than the other?
Maybe 1 or 2 hours. It like once you get the package build right, working with the current source, unless the source changes a lot or the version number changes, again, if it is a Git package, so for example, I said I read a Snapper Git, right?
Mm-hmm.
So unless the way Snapper build is changed, I have no reason to update the package build anymore. So I probably need to build it like once every few months. If it fails to build, then I need to change. But otherwise, I don't need to bother about it anymore. About Mate, I know the way Mate works. Again, Martin Wimpress works on Mate. They do a release every 6 months or a year. So it's 2210 Mate tweak is already out. So I use that number, like that version. So I don't need to change probably for 6 months. So again, these are
Okay.
Mate. Again, Mate is based on the Ubuntu ecosystem, so the sources don't change for 6 months. So unless these packages fail to build or they are not current, I don't need to bother with them for a long while.
How big was Mate tweak? Like how complicated was that?
Not too much. I just start to remove some sections and make sure it builds. So the suggestions were like the original package build has too many extra things which were not necessary because again the build method had changed. So I had to remove those things and made sure that the package built successfully and then it worked. So again, I tested it on my Raspberry Pi Mate install, so it went well. And also one more thing I did was add the Arch64 architecture to both the package builds. Again, I was building these things on ARM, 64-bit ARM, and most of the package builds on AUR don't have that. They just put architecture equal to x86-64, but at least for the package, I will add the Arch64 architecture. So that's another thing I changed.
Well, cool. Do you know how? So you got some user feedback already on it, or not yet?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
I think like that's the issue. Like if a package has been abandoned for a while, people stop using it and start finding alternatives. Like I used to use Mate tweak Git because that was the one which was working and which was being maintained. And now I adopted this. If someone finds it, they start using it. Maybe I'll get comments, but people generally don't comment unless it stops working or is it like it's bad. So hopefully,
right.
Let's see.
That makes sense. Well, great. Do you anticipate yourself grabbing more orphan packages, having a whole family of orphans?
Not really, because again, I want to maintain packages which I use regularly.
Okay.
Many people don't do that. They can adopt like packages if they're interested in maintaining them, but for me, it's not worth it. Like I want to maintain packages only which I'm using or which I would use. Because again, this is extra work. I don't want to do that much. And if I'm not using it, I will not find bugs in it, right? So
right.
For me, it's not being, as in someone, if it fails for someone, they will have again issues, they'll comment. I don't want that hassle. Because again, I already maintain packages for Endeavor. That's also list of things I do. This is just on the side, like just getting involved more with the Arch ecosystem and just having something in the AUR.
Something with your name on it. It's probably good for your resume too. your unofficial e-resume that people look at, I guess you could say.
Not really.
No, you don't think so?
Nah.
I think people always say like, what contributions have you made? What kind of experience you have? Rather than looking at a resume, they look at like your GitHub or whatever other things you do. So I think there's a lot of value in that.
Mhm.
So, well, very cool. Well, I hope to hear updates as that goes on. I don't know how complicated AUR management is. I know you said the Mate tweak will be once every 6 months. Snapper
Mhm.
Git. I don't know what you said on that. I don't know what you said on the
Probably
cadence on that.
never, unless the way basically Snapper is like an open source project. So unless something changes upstream, the way they build Snapper and the dependencies, I don't need to worry about changing it at all.
Okay. And it's it's an open source project, so it's gonna be pretty much top notch. So we know that already right out of the gate. See what I did there? Well, excellent. Well, thanks so much for sharing. I have a quick little thing I'm going to share. So I've done some upgrades to my workstation areas, my desks. One inside here. Talking to Mark, he said basically that I shouldn't. The top of the screen should be at eye level. Is where it should be. That's what Mark told me. I said, well, Mark, I'm not doing things right. Let me fix this. So I bought a mount, and like a vest mount, and I mounted my desk, and it's right at eye level, right at the bottom, or they should say the rim is right above my eye now. So
Okay.
So actually, it feels a lot better. I like this already. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm actually looking up, which is better on the neck, I think. And I really like it. It took some tweaking to get this thing so it was like level and it wasn't like canted, because I probably should have bought a better mount, maybe. It's like a little pop-off type. I thought it'd go easy, but I'm really happy with that.
I'm no ergonomics expert, but I remember when they used to come through the office and do your ergonomic setup, that's generally what the scenario they said, they set you at. Now I was it was interesting. I was hearing I was in an office today and I heard a teen complaining about headaches and possibly neck issues.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, well, teens today are probably not sitting at a monitor reading websites and such like we do all day, and possibly with work and Linux and all that. They may be, maybe they're sitting on the couch gaming with a controller, sitting, getting back away from. So I don't think that still applies to everyone, but I think if you are at a computer for a long time, at least my recollection of the ergonomics was to have the monitor, the top of the monitor at eyebrow level.
Yep. It makes sense. It feels a lot better. So I like it.
Yeah.
I can always make it higher. I have a long space. I can shift it up and down over here as part of
That's
the desk.
cool.
And then so it was quite an improvement to my workspace here. Also, it kind of freed up some of the on the desk surface itself, which I don't have a lot here. A lot of desk surface.
You got rid of the
Stand.
legs basically,
Right,
that
yeah.
were taking or the stand that was taking
Yeah.
up desk space.
So that's nice.
Good. Yeah.
Yep. So it's great. Making little desk improvements, like life improvements, like quality of life improvements. That's what they are, and it makes doing things when you have to spend a lot of time a lot better. So I made another change. So in my house, I had been like, I'm out here and I'm also in my house working both places. My life situation, I have to take care of my kids and work with them on their school and everything. That's vast majority of my days. So I couldn't be out here and then also monitor how they're doing with their schoolwork and making food and everything else. So I had been working a lot on the dining room table with my laptop, and then I added a screen on top of my laptop for more productive. And then I determined that I am taking over the dining room table way too much, and this is no longer acceptable. So I built myself out of scrap wood from other projects a stand-up desk that's about the same height as this here, but for my laptop, it's about a little over 2 feet wide. I don't know what that is in Australian numbers, but it's about 2 feet wide. This wide, Colin. It's about this wide. And stack my
600
monitor up.
mil.
Okay, is that
About
Well-
67 meters, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Did you put wheels on it though?
No, I didn't. I put little felt pads on it so I can slide it around on the hardwood floor.
Oh.
But much nicer. I got a couple of shelves there so I can kind of keep things organized. And now the transition isn't totally complete yet, but I've got nearly everything that was kind of in different spots in the kitchen gone. And so my kitchen will look like a normal kitchen again. I'm really excited for this, having a proper work, like a little office. It's a mini office. It's a very small, part of my bedroom. And I right next to the window so I can open up the window and I can watch the birds still. That makes me happy.
It would have been great if you put wheels on it, because then you could have called it the cubicle mobile.
Oh, would that be my minivan? Cubicle roll around. All right. Anyway, so I think good places to work and to be productive, I think, is very important. If it's not comfortable or if it's cumbersome, I think improving, your foxhole, as it were, I think really helps to make life little quality of life enhancements. I think are very important. I was going to ask. So, Colin, I've seen your workspace now for years, and I'm often wonder, what is it that I'm looking at? Like, what are you looking at when you're sitting here? Is it a single monitor? Is it multiple monitors, multiple computers? I've seen Mark when he doesn't, fog out his background. He's got a really cool setup. Got a Starbuck, Jason Starbuck. He's got a really cool setup too. See, I can't see it. It's all
Mark
hazy.
has 10 monitors.
Maybe if I can
There we
get
go.
the camera out.
See, that's a cool setup. Oh, it does look like a command center.
That's my desk. I don't know if I can bring the camera in. I probably can. Stuck behind.
That's all right.
There we
I
go.
don't need to break something on my account.
A little
Oh, wow, look at
hutch
that.
up there
Yeah.
and stuff behind me. I got that little bench there just to put on top of this filing cabinet, just
Okay.
for extra space. I've got a TV over there which I don't have a cable to plug in. I've got to work on that.
Okay.
We just had some stuff around the house that the daughter moved back in, and I had to put some stuff in here. It's got a built-in wardrobe over there, and then I've
that's
got
nice.
DVDs and stuff on that.
Is it like
yeah. So
is summer break coming up? Is that what's going on?
no. She we don't have college and stuff here. So she moved out as she was working,
Oh, okay.
and then she just decided to move back into home, save some money.
That makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't want to move out of your house either. I think if I were your daughter, I think I probably want to stay there.
Where are we? Is that it? Yeah, it looks
Looks
good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just curious. I just wanted to see what your workspace looked like. And what is it you stare at? So
Yeah, it's a bit messy at the moment, but that's normally like that sometimes. But I've got computers up the top here, and computers in there, and just stuff all over the place when I feel like doing things.
that's very cool.
It's comfortable. Yeah, it's comfortable.
I've been watching the shelves that you have over your shoulder. I'm guessing it's your right shoulder. The
Yep.
industrial looking shelves. Those I watch as like sometimes there's more laptops there than there are fewer laptops. So obviously that's some kind of a staging ground. Is that what that is?
Depends whether I'm using them or not. Like this one here. So this one here, my brother's got the same. That was my daughter's, but it had Windows on it. It's a Lenovo.
Oh, yep.
But it didn't work fast enough for her. She didn't like the keyboard layout either, because the Alt button is it's a little Alt button, and it's really weird. So my brother's got the same one. While I was over at his place on the other side of Australia a few weeks ago, I installed Peppermint on this for him. He had a Peppermint 10 on there, but it was a bit wasn't working for him because he hadn't used it much. So
Right.
I put Peppermint 11 or the new Peppermint on there. And then I've got this up here, but you probably can't see it here.
What is that?
That's
Oh,
what do you call
Minecraft.
it?
It's a Minecraft.
Yeah.
Diamond.
The daughter got it from somewhere, so I just stuck it up here. But you really can't see it, can you? I'm gonna have to put it in a spot where it's
Yeah, so they can
more-
see it. Yeah, more
Yeah,
prominent.
there we
Yeah,
go.
I like it. That's beautiful. Well, very cool. I just wanted to bother you about your workspace setup, and I'll bother other people too. I know Mark's got such a neat setup. I've seen it a few times. His looks like really like neat and tidy and orderly. So, or maybe that's just the part that we see.
That's just the part you see.
I think that's with everyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trust me, behind me, there's a Dell server box with just lots of crap piled on top.
That's beautiful. I love it.
I forgot to mention this room is actually a guest room, but
Okay.
since we moved into this home, the proper study out the front is the kids have used it. So first it was a daughter, now it's a son. So I sort of got left with no study for myself because, they were at school and all that, but it's just the way it's ended up. So I ended up grabbing all this stuff out of the study and put it in here and set it up as a room. I used to be in the front room, which is at the moment a gym room, but it is actually a theatre room. So yeah, that's where I used to be, but then I moved into here.
Gotcha.
The biggest downfall moving into here is the shower's next door. So if someone's in the shower, I've got to stop recording because this mic picks up just everything.
Oh, that's funny.
Not unless I get some spray foam and spray the back of the bench there between the bench and the wall, but that'd be pretty messy, I reckon.
I think so. Is that egg crate foam might be better.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's good enough.
Well, all right. We'll bother some more regulars on their desk setup. Those that actually, I mean, I'd love to see what Eris has, but we don't even know what Eris looks like. So
Yeah, one of the things that Steve's very own podcast, he's every once in a while he'll spend a few minutes and show his setup that he uses. And I always find that interesting to see, other people's setups and such. So you can probably catch that on YouTube replay if you wanted.
yeah, actually, I did see that. I watched him when he did that. I thought it was pretty great.
Yeah.
He just did some shorts showing himself editing too. That was pretty cool. Yeah, very cool.
And Mike Tennell said that he was going to, I think he said he was going to do that also, kind of a show his setup. I'd like to kind of see how he uses, I forgot the name of the teleprompter that open source software that we use, but what do you use for the show? I'm sorry, I forgot.
I use for the show notes or for his show?
Yeah, for the show notes.
I use HedgeDoc.
teleprompter.
I don't know about the teleprompter. I just use HedgeDoc for the notes. I don't have anything cool like a
Okay.
teleprompter. I'd have to get rid of
Alright.
the shelves over here, which I like
Yeah.
having. So
Okay.
it'd be too much remodeling on my end, and I'm too
Alright.
lazy.
But I don't know if he's recorded that yet or not. I need to go and look for it. I haven't. I know he talked about it, and again, I find a little bit of that interesting how people use their setups.
For sure. All right. So we're going to move on to the main topic, Alpine Linux. So we have some rules. And if you've heard these rules before, I'm almost sorry, but you can hear them again. The intent is to talk about the different aspects of the operating system and discuss the experience from using it. This is a discussion by which should be objective and constructive, as non-objective opinions like this is garbage isn't helpful. Rather, if you would say, I wish it had a specific feature, or I really need features that allow me to do something, you are benefiting the conversation. The point of this is the point is to highlight the positives, but not ignore the lowlights of the project. Remember, this is a labor of love for some, so let's not poo-poo on it. So, Eris, you did a straw poll, and what were the results of that straw poll that you did?
12% said we have reached new heights of greatness for Alpine Linux. 29% said it is okay. 12% said not interested in doing this exploration. 18% said I'm unable to do the exploration. 12% said not interested in doing the explorations in general. And 18% said other. And these were the replies. Other, it takes a lot to set up Alpine. They don't include the man database and install. So after the install, I basically had to start the post install with the wiki open. So I had to SSH into my Alpine machine to get the wiki. And I know how to install, which isn't a bad thing. Some things I had to enable the edge testing repository. Why would LX appearance be in testing? I like Alpine and I might use it for a couple of weeks. So I am learning a lot. I like fiddling with Linux, so I'm happy to do it. But I can see how people might not want to use it. Using RC init is easy enough, so no systemd. Edit Telegram desktop and the repository is version 3.73, and Flatpak version is 4.2.4. And then somebody else said, not so much an exploration as I use it in my containers, or at least most of them, all the time, they said. And then the last person said, currently traveling, I can't risk having a serious technical issue with my laptop right now. Could do it in the VM, but I prefer to explore on bare metal so I could get a full and true experience.
Yeah, I saw that last one, and I personally thought that however you want to install it, however you think that you might use it, is the way, would be the best way to use it, I think. Some history or some background about Alpine Linux. Alpine Linux is an independent, non-commercial, general-purpose Linux distribution designed for power users who appreciate security, simplicity, and resource efficiency. Alpine is built around muscle libc and busybox. This makes it small and very resource efficient. A container requires no more than 8 megabytes and a minimal installation to the disk, which requires about 130 megabytes of storage. Not only do you get a fully fledged Linux environment, but a large selection of packages from the repository. Binary packages are thinned out and split, giving you even more control over what you install, which in turn keeps your environment as small and efficient as possible. Alpine Linux is a very simple distribution that will try to stay out of your way. It uses its own package manager called APK, the OpenRC init system, scripts-driven setups, and that's it. This provides you with a simple, crystal clear Linux environment without all the noise. You can then add on top of that just the packages you need for your project, so whatever it's building, a home PVR or an iSCSI storage controller, a wafer-thin mail server container, or a rock-solid embedded switch, nothing else will get in the way. Alpine Linux was designed with security in mind. All userland binaries are compiled and position-independent executables with stack smashing protection. These proactive security features prevent exploitation of the entire classes of zero-day and other vulnerabilities. So as far as, after you read the about, at that point you realize this is not installing Ubuntu with Calamares and going to get to a desktop right away. The focus here is obviously server land. So they have many different download options. They have a standard, extended, and net boot. And these all have different platforms. You have ARM Architecture 64, ARM v7, PowerPoint, or no, not PowerPoint. Good job, PowerPoint. PowerPC, S390X, x86, and x86-64, so you can still run on your 32-bit hardware if you want. They have it built for a Raspberry Pi, generic ARM, and a mini root file system. They have virtual and Zen options as well. There are lots and lots of options. I should have counted how many in total. So as far as the setup process goes, who here successfully got Alpine Linux installed?
It was too complex for me, Nate. Sorry to say.
No, I got it installed.
No, I got installed too.
I can't get Arch installed. So Sravan got it.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna guess that Eris, do you happen to get it installed? Or white chocolate?
I didn't get it installed.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
I gave up after 10 tries and said, I'm done.
I found the install questions to be a little caught off guard by some of those. Again, when we're so familiar with Calamares and some of the other mainstream installers, this one caught me off a little, off guard a little bit.
It caught me very off guard, to be honest with you, because I mean, yes, I've done Gen 2 and things like that, but going back to Calamares kind of, I guess, spoiled me a little bit, because I mean, now that I've used it so many times, I mean, it's gone to the point where I'm kind of like, I guess I kind of get a little too spoiled sometimes with GUI installers, and I just, when I go back to these ncurses or whatever, old school, I guess you could call it, CLI based installers, I just, it takes away from getting so spoiled by these GUI installers, I guess. I don't know.
That's understandable. Sravan, you have something you want to throw in there?
Yeah, I think like people who will be comfortable like installing Alpine are like terminal warriors. Like everything you have to maybe edit config files. If you're comfortable in the terminal, for most part, just follow the instructions in the wiki, and also like just go typing step by step, and then for the most part you'll be fine. It's not that hard. Again, the one place which I found lacking was the install instructions for desktops, but we can get to there later. But our like the basic install, like desktop is not considered part of basic install, Alpine install.
No.
But for the basic install, for the most part, it went really smooth for me.
So I went kind of a different way with it there. So I installed it, but instead of doing a graphical environment, I thought, oh, I'm going to have some fun with this. And I installed Tmux instead as my my desktop environment. So
Yeah.
So I think the part of Alpine, like that's not what we normally do here. We generally do desktop environments. That's why I install desktop environment for trying out. But the main advantage is to having a system as minimal as you want it to be, which is like really fast. You can add stuff really fast. That's one thing which stood out to me was APK and their mirrors. Like even the package binaries were small. APK was so fast. I was like, I thought Pac-Man was fast, but this is like way faster. And I think if you know what you're doing, it's a very, very quick way of getting however minimal system you want. Like again, as Nate said in his about just having the packages you need, getting that set up is like, that's really good. And you can get it running really fast if you have like a set of instructions and you know exactly what you want to get. Basically, you want a final result, you can get to that pretty fast.
Can I recap some of the install steps
Yes.
that I recall? If you don't want. So and I had to look it up again. So you know Alpine doesn't boot with a GUI, and you ended the command line. You do have to type setup-alpine, all one word, you know, all no spaces, and then that starts the installer. The first thing it asks for is the keyboard layout, and it comes up with the default of none. So if you just press enter, you don't get any. And I'm like, that threw me off, right? Because I'm always I'm always familiar with it auto detecting my time zone and thus the country, thus the keyboards, right? So the first one is the keyboard layout. The answer for me was US. And then it says select the variant. And I'm like, the variant of the keyboard. Well, and then it lists out all the, you know, Dvorak keyboards and Dvorak R. And I'm like, well, I don't use Dvorak. And then the very, very last option is just US. So US. And so anyways, that was I was worried because I never see all those options. I was worried about picking the wrong thing. So anyways, and then the next piece is setting the host name. That's fine. The default is that if you just press enter, it'll just name it localhost. But you know, I put a meaningful host name in there. And then it starts going into the Ethernet setting. So it detected a available interface. And now for me, you know, I was doing my cloud install. And so I was on a cloud hosting service, specifically Vultr, but DigitalOcean's very similar, any of those. And so you're not actually dealing with a physical NIC card. You're dealing with a virtual NIC card. And so, and the other thing is those providers, when you provision the VMs, they assign an IP address to that interface. So the question was, do you want DHCP none or question mark? And I'm like, well, I don't know. They provide that. I don't know where that comes. Well, ultimately I chose DHCP because it would it would then ask the provider, what is the IP address you're giving this host?
Mhm.
And then it worked out. When I tried to do manual, I was having to be prompted for the IP, which I knew, but then it started prompting me for the net mask. And I'm like, I don't know what the cloud server's net mask is. So anyways, DHCP ended up working better for me. And then lastly, you have to choose a new password for root. That was pretty straightforward. Actually, not lastly. And then it says choose your time zone, and that it actually displayed all the options, and then you can choose the time zone. And I believe that was the end of it. And oh no, one more. Then it asked for what disk you want to install to, and so in my case, I had a virtual disk, but in the screenshots it does SDA, and you can pick pick that. And then that was pretty much the end of it. So it suggests that you reboot at the end.
I'm not sure if you're aware, Mark, but if you actually type question mark, it'll give you options.
Okay.
If you type question mark and type question mark, press enter, and then it'll give you options on that, whatever stage you're at. So if you're not sure whether to type your America in with a capital A, it'll show you all the list, how to type it. That's what I did.
Exactly. So it wasn't bad. It just, like I said, it catches you off guard if you're not familiar with doing that day in and day out. All right, so that was the end of that, Nate.
Yeah, I did the very similar setup -Alpine and just let it do its automatic, pretty much everything. I did set to use the DNS as my pi hole though, so that it went directly through the pi hole, didn't find any other DNS servers anywhere. That's the only thing I really changed as far as the default is concerned. So did you install a GUI for it?
I did not.
Okay.
I basically rebooted and then applied updates. Make sure you apply your updates. Just because you just now installed it doesn't mean that it's up to date and secure. So please install your updates. And of course, that was with the APK space update. It is, it's not the same as other package managers that we may have on Ubuntu and such. So this is their own package manager.
Right.
Look, Eric Adams is back.
Hi, Eric. So good to see you.
Hi. How's it going?
G'day, Eric.
It's going well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking Alpine Linux.
Oh.
I don't know if you ever had any experience with Alpine Linux. I have not
No.
before this week. And
no, I don't think so. I'm trying to remember if that is something I've used. I don't even know that I've looked at it, honestly.
So Ben, who actually builds a distribution, says it's too complicated for him. Mark went through his setup process.
Yeah, I gave up after a few tries, and it just was, I couldn't wrap my hands around it, unfortunately.
So Eric, do you remember that time we did an Arch challenge on Biddle, and I basically had to come crying to you because I couldn't get it installed?
Yes, I seem to remember something like that.
Yeah, well, I got Alpine installed just fine. So I don't know if maybe it's I'm not sure why I had an easy time with Alpine versus
Experience, Nate. Experience.
There's an actual installer though, right? That was
true.
a big difference because we did the Archway,
right
reading
we
the
did.
wiki and
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yes.
this, I did Alpine the Alpine way, and it was very easy. I just had set up Alpine, and it set up Alpine for me, and I could actually do stuff.
So Alpine 1, Arch 0? Is that what I'm
Yeah,
taking
I would
away
take
from?
so far. I would take Alpine over Arch.
Okay.
Personally,
But Arch now is Arch install. It's the same thing. It's better than Alpine setup.
but yeah, because they have a newer installer now, right? Arch
Yeah,
finally
they have an Arch
caved
install.
and instead of like, I guess they took too much out. Like, oh, whoa, we'll put some stuff back.
Also, like when Mark was saying his challenges, I had the similar one. Like I couldn't find US Eastern time zone. I had to first choose US. I first chose Eastern, it didn't work. Then I had to choose US, go to sub menu, and then choose Eastern in that. So there are two. There's Eastern and there's US Eastern. I don't know the difference between those two. And like I think I messed up in the last step in that setup Alpine. So I didn't configure the password properly. So I had to redo the entire thing again. Luckily it was fast, but somehow changing password for a user is not that trivial. If you mess it up the first time when you set it up, you have to go to like install some password tools, and I didn't want to go there.
Yeah, I installed it twice, but that's because I mistyped something like I just stopped and then just restarted it up. So I guess I didn't fully install it twice. I installed it anyway.
Yeah. Generally, when you go through like this TUI based scripts, you just press enter like Mark said. And here you should not do that. Read carefully, don't press enter.
Well, what I was doing though was I was adding a new user and I didn't read it correctly, and so I said add. So it said give me the then one of the password for user add, username add.
Yep.
So that's basically why I restarted it at that point.
Yeah, I had the same issue. Like when you do the new user thing, it's like password. If you mess up the password once, there's no chance. It says wrong password not set, and then you go to a new user add thing, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I have to redo this, but luckily it's fast, so you don't need to worry about it that much. It won't waste that much of your time.
So, Colin, you said you were playing with getting it installed now.
Yeah, I've got it installed with an XFCE desktop.
Cool.
So the only thing that I can't sort out is there's the shutdown is grayed out. So it says you got to install the eLogND and the eLogND poll kit, which I've done, but I still don't have a shutdown option. It's grayed out or suspend.
I don't know if you noticed, but you don't have Vim or Nano. You have VI only. So I think like VI, it's hard to escape. They don't want you to leave Alpine.
You can install Vim pretty easily. I did that.
I know, but by default, they just installed VI.
Yeah.
That was just for you, Colin.
Yeah, I didn't use VI. I never got to that point. I only used, once I installed the desktop, I had XFCE terminal, so it's all good. I don't use Vim and VI and all that. That's just for the technical people. I'm just a desktop user.
Yeah, I got you.
If I cannot just simply click out of an application, and it's difficult to, I'm not going to use it. That's just wrong.
I totally get it.
So even install LXQt, you have to edit a config file and enable a repository. Edge testing or Edge community, I forgot which one it was. So you have to edit the config file for APK to enable the repository to install LXQt. So you don't have it by default in the normal repos. So you have to use VI or Nano or whatever to even get a GUI installed.
Yeah, Nano's fine. I don't mind using Nano. That's my technical application is Nano. That's as far as I'll go.
Nano's great. I think Nano's great.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so what I did is I set up Tmux, and I was trying to set it up to use it like a text-based graphic user interface. I dug up one of my old articles I wrote some time ago, but I basically I use Tmux to create like a virtual or a terminal desktop environment. I have a bunch of a little cheat sheet right there that I shouldn't say a cut sheet. I have a cut sheet right there of how you can utilize it, and that made it fun for me. So that's what I did to make. I thought, well, if I'm going to tailor this to my desires, I'm not installing Alpine Linux for a great GUI experience. I'm going to install it for a great terminal experience, and so that's exactly what I did. I made it a great terminal experience and installed W3M so I can browse the web in the terminal and all kinds of fun stuff like that.
I could see that if you put this on like one of these laptops here I was showing before, it'll probably run pretty well because it's pretty fast as long as you can get your sound and everything working. It does boot pretty quick, so it's pretty lightweight on resources. So that's pretty handy.
You know what?
Yep.
I didn't even try sound. What if I have sound in the terminal? I should try and rickroll myself.
Well, I'm only in VirtualBox, so I don't know. But the one thing, if I've got any criticism at all, front and center on their wiki should be password or login is root and password is just enter. That should be front and center on the wiki, to be honest. And I mean, I was Control F and looking for login, password, whatever on the wiki. I couldn't find nothing. So I did a Google search and found it, not a problem. But you shouldn't have to be Google searching outside of a wiki if you've got a wiki there to get you through. So I don't know, it didn't tell you what the password was. Maybe it's obvious to some people, but it wasn't obvious to me.
No, and documentation, especially technical writing, it's got to be one of the biggest challenges or one of the bigger ones for distributions, because that's not something people really generally either want to do or are particularly good at.
Yeah.
And so it's not that surprising. I still get surprised. I just like you, Colin. I mean, I feel the same way where I'm like, this seems so obvious. Like, why wouldn't there just be an entry, like, rather than me have to go ask in a forum or something like that? So yeah. Or search with Google and find it somewhere else.
Search Google.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just one of those things, like, to start with, it all started up and everything, but my biggest sticking point was just logging in. Now, I have done a video on Alpine Linux, so I probably should have known, but I wasn't going to remember that. And I didn't want to watch my video because I wanted to see if I could do this outside of the video that I made, because that was quite a while ago. But I was just surprised that I thought, I'll see if I can find it on the wiki. I'll go that extra mile and see if I can find it, but I couldn't find it. So I just thought that's something that constructive criticism there for their wiki that could have that information there, or easier to find, you know, front and center straight off the bat.
I really feel like their instructions make a lot of assumptions that you have already a base level understanding of how the terminal works and a lot of the terminal applications. I think they make those assumptions based on how it's written. And if I didn't have the experience I did, you know, with playing with stuff in the terminal, I think I would have gotten stuck a long time ago. But because I do have that terminal experience, it wasn't a big deal for me. It would be nice if they did have maybe like a, you know, an easy guide that, you know, gave the assumed steps.
Yeah, it's just that easy button, right? Just push the easy
button.
Yeah.
I know it's not easy, and if it's written by a technical person, obviously a technical person has things that they already know, so that's fair enough. But I went straight to installation, so I would have thought I would find it front and center under installation, under that link. So you go to install, and you have to think that that would have been there. So it's not. So yeah, I think you're right, Nate. I think their wiki does work under some assumptions. That's what it seems to be like. And I think that's a good way of putting it, to be honest.
So I don't really fault them in that, because there's, I mean, regardless, every wiki makes some sort of baseline assumptions. And so here they're just probably making some more assumptions than I think that maybe they should.
That's a fair point.
Well,
I mean, they're going to assume you know how to use a computer. You've gotten this far. You've gotten, you know, I mean, so maybe they're just making too many assumptions. Yeah.
Like if you're setting up Alpine Linux to work in a, you know, very small and secure, to work, you know, as a virtual machine or something along those lines, they're already making some other assumptions that you are using it. You have some other underlying bits of knowledge for
it.
You know,
it's similar to Arch Linux. How when you go to the Arch wiki to see how to install Arch Linux, there's a lot of assumptions that they think you should know already. Like like you're supposed to be in root doing certain commands, be a user. There's a lot of things that are not explicitly explained in the wiki, in the install part. You would have to search around and look around the other wiki, other parts, but not necessarily in the install part. And I guess they think that the user who will use this distribution from the get start will be an advanced user, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think you're right, Aris. It's probably not for desktop users like myself, to be honest. Although I I've gone into that sort of stuff. So just a simple search for me, I know to get it going. I probably should have known it. Just memory doesn't remember those things these days. But yeah, I don't think they put it there for an average desktop user, that's for sure. So, you know, we're doing something a little bit out of the ordinary. It's an exploration. Some of us are technical, some of us are not. So I think that's where it stops there. But, you know, for anybody who wanted to try it, maybe people who are learning or want to get into this sort of stuff, I think the information's still good to be there.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously someone else thought that too, because if you Googled and found that answer, you know, someone wouldn't have taken the time to put it somewhere if it wasn't useful information, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
So
Also regarding the documentation, if you look at documentation for XFC and KDE, they're really good. But I choose LXQt because I thought it would be lighter. And the instructions are severely lacking. So my first attempt, like I was posting my experiences on the Linux Saloon, like Telegram chat, like it was looking like NCD. Like I got a terminal and nothing, like I couldn't set the resolution. I didn't know that Xrandr wasn't installed by default. And like all the apps except QTerminal were crashing for me. Like nothing was working. Again, when I launched these apps to the terminal, it was like some dbus errors, even though I put dbus in there. And the instruction for putting dbus in there was not there for LXQt, but it was there for XFCE. So I had to like combine like 3 different wikis, and still I couldn't get apps working. Like all the apps were crashing. Then it turns out somewhere I saw that you have to install dbus X11. So once I installed this one package, everything started working properly. I had a wallpaper. I had like stuff actually working, like not crashing. Like everything except QTerminal was crashing. And now like I could run apps. It looked normally. Then I use Xrandr to set the resolution. I think I installed VirtualBox guest additions too. So I was installing this in a VirtualBox. So I added guest addition. So it was like in a day, the transformation was, okay, this looks like something 20 years old. Okay, this resembles a normal modern desktop with a wallpaper and apps working. It was like the instructions were not clear at all. Like, I think I posted I'll post a link of where I found this dbus X11 package. So it was like Alpine setup scripts under video packages. So it was basically the graphics driver crashing. So whatever app you launch, it uses graphics, right? So it was some graphics driver crashing, and you have to set it up in a specific way by installing this dbus X11 package, and also add PCI utils, XF86 video, and for I think VirtualBox there was a specific video driver for VirtualBox, XF86 VirtualBox or something. XF86 video VBox video. So again, there are instructions spread over the wiki, and they're not linked properly. So ArchWiki, like whatever you say, the stuff to, for example, grub, even though in the install they don't write, okay, this is grub, they give you grub link. You click on that, you go to grub wiki page, and then you have instructions to install grub. That's not there here. So they assume you know what you're doing, and it's a bigger assumption than what ArchWiki makes. And then you have to just keep on trying until something works. And I don't think that's how instructions should be. Like instructions should be in a logical manner. Do this, and this. It should work. Or have links to certain different sections. Okay, to set up this, go here. But that was not there. And maybe it's just documentation. I think it's just documentation. So everything works well, but I hope that documentation was better. Again, it's a volunteer effort. Obviously, it's an open source project. So like I could probably volunteer to clean those wikis up. So let's see. So I think documentation should be vastly improved, because again, if you know what you're doing, I know these errors, right? The next time I do something, I won't face these issues because I know, okay, I have to go here, I have to read this, I have to install these packages. I know this will work.
Hmm.
But for a user trying the first time, again, I have like relatively good web searching skills. I can like dig things, just dig until I find the solution. But for most people, I don't think it's that easy if the instructions are just lacking.
It's like that tech support diagram, if you've ever seen that, where it's like,
Nah.
what's the problem? Google found the answer, fix the problem. Like, yeah.
But again, you have to know what you're doing first to even understand what you
Yeah.
get for the Google
Yeah, that's
searches.
true. Yeah. You're right.
Because there's already a wiki, there's segments of instructions which are there in the wiki. You just need to link to them. It's like just link this part and then users can get it working. It's like I have LXQt, nothing works. It doesn't look good. I have to slowly like go at it, try adding stuff, like just experiment, and then finally have a working system. And then after that, you're exhausted doing that. You don't want to explore it anymore because okay. But again, it's like a normal LXQt, so I know what it does. So I didn't explore it that much after that. But I think after I got a working system, then I added like some things like sudo and other packages just to see how the packages were. But like again, good thing is that making changes for the system is so fast. Like APK is so fast. Just adding things, it's like, and also it's if you look at the size footprint of all these things, it's very small. I think my system was less than 1 GB for all this graphical stuff. And also memory was lower than Arch. So on Arch, my LXQt is 350 MB. Here it's maybe 250 MB RAM or even 200 MB RAM. It's just like, it's much more minimal. So that's an advantage. So if you want stuff, just what you want, it's very minimal. So it's very minimal, very fast, but you just have to go through hoops to get a system. Again, I don't mind it because I don't think it's meant to be used as a graphical environment in the first place. So I think proper way to explore Alpine is to build containers off of it and run services and run them successfully. I think that's the way to go. But if again, this is a distro exploration for desktop, so I tried it that way. But maybe if I have time, I'll try it like in a container wise. But I think I'm exploring Docker for containers now, so I don't know if I want to explore Alpine too. But you can
That's
use
what so Adam Grubbs in the chat, he does a lot of infrastructure stuff running containers and all that. And he said he's only used Alpine and Docker containers, which makes sense. So
yeah, I've been working with another member of EndeavorOS community to build some Arch Linux Docker containers. Again, that person has been using Alpine as a base to do that. So I'll probably learn more exploring, like creating Docker containers using Alpine, as like based on Alpine. So
like you said, I think the point is that they don't want to give you anything more than, because a desktop focused distribution, more than likely whenever you installed those packages, it would have probably had those other things that you had to do manually as dependencies. So they would have pulled all that stuff in automatically, and you would have never had to do all that in the first place, because someone would have been using it that way and figured out, oh, well, these 3 packages should be there, or else it's going to be a hassle to get running. So you're probably right. But I guess this was to prove, I wasn't here to hear it last week, but I'm guessing this is to prove that you could run a desktop if you wanted to. So
No, I don't think, Nate, you're on mute.
we like him on mute. That's okay.
Yeah, I do too. I don't think it was meant to prove one thing or another. It was just, if you're going to run Alpine Linux, how would you run Alpine Linux? And for me, I'd probably run it as a terminal base, because if I'm going to have a graphic session, I'm not going to take all that time to do that. I will go about it another way. But I think that if I'm going to set up a lean, mean, single-purpose terminal-based appliance doing some kind of function, like let's say like a Docker container that maybe just ran a sync thing relay server or something like that, then I can see how I would potentially use this. Or if maybe I just want like an interface, something like a jumping off point for something else, maybe monitoring various things, like in a VM or Docker container or whatever, I could use Alpine Linux for that function, rather than install my beloved OpenSUSE, which would take up a lot more space and it would be kind of a waste of a SUSE install, right?
Hmm.
So the good thing about Alpine is that it has Pacman, APK, and probably RPM, like all these package managers as Alpine packages. So you can start with an Alpine system, but use APT and DNF to create like bootstrap your own like Debian or Ubuntu-based system or a Fedora system. At least that's what we are trying to do for Pacman. So there's Alpine Pacman. So you can just bootstrap an Arch system based on Alpine Pacman. So they offer several package managers for other systems so that you can create, I think there's Arch install scripts too. So you can have, there's several tools from other distributions to help you bootstrap from an Alpine image to work on other systems too.
Yeah, and when I read the synopsis of Alpine, I basically saw that it was for container or single purpose. And so I kind of stopped there. I didn't even try a desktop.
I mean, the things are there. So if you really want the desktop,
Yeah.
go forth and do great things. Henry in the chat says Alpine would make sense for a base for a mobile OS too, because it is so lean.
Yes. So the most popular mobile-based OS is Postmarket OS. It's an Alpine-based OS. It's already there for several years.
What'd be interesting to know is what mainstream things are running Alpine. If there's anything mainstream, like a refrigerator, treadmill, or something like that.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah,
But-
if there has to be, so if Alpine's focused on containers, there has to be some reason why you would want to run it instead of something else. And maybe it is just that it's so lean, not knowing what those things are, that there has to be, like, if that's their focus, there have to be giving you some sort of tool or something, that's going to be an advantage over running any other, because you can run Ubuntu as a headless or as terminal only, and lots of other RPM based systems, and so there has to be some reason that Alpine is focused on that thing. So
Prophetic says he might put Alpine on his mini Yoga when it can't run Plasma anymore. Now, if you could have like I keep thinking like a terminal based yet touchscreen interface, how neat would that be? Like an actual practical terminal interface with a touchscreen. That would be cool. Even if it uses all ASCII whatever characters for popping up the keyboard and everything else. That would be pretty cool, I think.
There was a way to install Alpine in like a chroot. I haven't tried it. I should probably have tried it. So it seems you can install it like a separate partition or a directory in your existing distribution. So you would just use that as a separate container, but I should have probably tried it. That's an interesting way. There were, again, when you looked at the initial options, there were several ways to install Alpine.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a way. That's interesting. I think that's their main use case, to use it on a minimal device. Like, it started as a as a router, like Linux router project, like having a Linux system on a router to get it running. So that's their main thing, like either on a container or as a minimal system, which you can put on a device to run.
So any other thoughts about Alpine Linux before we move on to why you should give it a spin?
I don't know. I thought it was a good learning experience. I can definitely say that.
Yeah, I would agree to that.
I did get XFCE working and running on it, but like some of the stuff was a little confusing on how to actually get that to happen. And I don't know if that was me or what I was reading, but I ended up just looking on the internet and finding someone else's take on it instead of using Alpine's, and then learning how to do it. So maybe they need some work on it, maybe they don't. That's just because I couldn't do it doesn't mean it's right or wrong.
But I mean, you did get XFCE running. So now, were you able to exit out of XFCE? Because apparently Colin couldn't.
Oh, no problem.
Yep.
Everything worked flawlessly. But I went online and watched 3 videos, including Colin's video. And then I went online and typed in how to install it and found text and started reading that and started to try to figure out exactly what I wanted to do that I thought was right. I must have made 12 mistakes because I did. And eventually I figured it out and got it to work.
That's excellent. All right. So I'm going to go and do my, why you should give it a spin. And even if you didn't install it, Make something up. So, Eris, let's say you're sitting on a subway train. You and one other guy, the lights are flickering, and your stop is coming up, and he says, "Hey, I heard you ran Alpine Linux," which wasn't true, apparently. Why do you think I should give it a spin?
You want to have like a tiny server, do something simple, and take up as small space as possible, as least resources as possible. You can have total control of your server that way.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, Sravan, no cheating. Let's say you're on that subway train, and you can hear like the wheels and the track kind of making that grinding sound as it goes around a corner. You know what I'm talking about, how it kind of does that as it sways back and forth. And some stranger asks you, he's got a shiv in one hand, why you should try Alpine Linux. He's going to shiv you. He's thinking about it though. It is a subway train.
If you like fast stuff, if you want something which is lean, mean machine, like very small, very fast, can just get work done, that's Alpine. If you are all about performance,
I like it.
yeah, it's super fast. Everything runs well, and it's small. It has a small footprint. You have exactly what you need on the system, nothing else. And yeah, and also I don't know. I haven't explored the security aspect. Like, I'm not an expert on that. Again, if it is like secure, again, it's mostly for containers and it's designed as a router project, so it has to be secure. So again, yeah, something which is secure, which is fast, which is small, like APK. I don't think anything is even close to APK speed. I think if you run the same install stuff, like install XFCE with APK and DNF, I think it'll run laps around it. Like, it's not even close, especially on a weaker hardware.
Okay, that's cool. I think that's a good point though about the package manager is very fast in it. I'm wondering why it's so fast, like what they've done different. I wonder what's in the sauce there.
So I think there are two main things. Again, they're related. It's like if the mirrors are fast, you can have faster downloads, and also if the binaries are fast, it doesn't matter what's the internet speed. If the binaries are slow and they're compressed, like small and compressed well, you can just get stuff installed pretty fast because your download speed is fast and the way it's packaged is fast. So I don't know what they do underneath, how they compress stuff, but it's like super, super fast. Like, I installed LXQt in a minute. I was like, okay, this is, I've never expected to install a whole desktop environment in under a minute. So, I don't know what they do in the back end. I have to explore maybe one day.
I think it's related to them using Muscle. Muscle's probably speeding up their whole packages.
Yeah,
because
but
everything's...
not by this much, Aris. This is like, it was ridiculous how fast it was. Again, I have to probably try other muscle-based distros like Void to understand, okay, if that's fast too. But, like, this was like super fast. Like, I was surprised.
All right, well, I'm going to move on to Colin. Colin, you're on that same subway, but a kangaroo comes
Oh,
up to you.
God. Well, is this one of those dark, creepy, cold subways where the Warriors are hanging out with a bunch of baseballers? Or
Yeah, like not all the lights are working. They're flickering, and there's a lot of graffiti on the inside of it.
Or is it one of those nice, warm, dark subways with low ambient light where geeks from their mother's downstairs basement are hanging out and want to know something about technical things?
Let's go with whichever one you dislike more.
Okay. I honestly think that I think it's good for anyone who's getting themselves into the technical environment and they want to explore and learn how to use Linux, and they're looking at making their own distro or probably how to do an ISO or something like that. I think it's good for someone like that. Definitely not for the average user, for sure. So if I come across one of those guys, I'd be saying Alpine Linux, mate, is the way to go.
Cool. Jinda, so you're on that subway, but it's not as dark and dank as Colin's subway. It's a little bit nicer. Let's say it's like a Florida subway, if there is such a thing, which is probably underwater at this point. And someone asks you about Alpine Linux and what's it good for?
Well, I think it's got a very good use because of the fact that it's such customizable and it is quick. If you start learning how to install it and you just want a terminal just to run some simple tasks, I don't think it would take you very long to set it up. And I think it's quick and light, and I think that's for like a terminal for Proxmox or for of some kind of VM. This thing's the way to go. It looks like.
Okay, cool. Definitely utility. Mark, let's say you're on a subway, but it's like Colin's. It's really dank, and lights are flickering. Not all of them are working. You're not sure about some of the characters, but one of them asks you about Alpine Linux and if it's any good. What would you say?
Well, I'm going to say that at least in their wiki, the first thing they mention is that it's a security-oriented distribution. So I'm going to go with the security answer. And while I don't want to review, I don't want to get into the review of the security features. I think that having a focus there means that you should look at it and dive into that and see if it meets your needs.
Okay.
So
very cool. Ben?
Okay. I'm gonna probably be like the retentive wimp about this, but if I was in a subway and someone came up to me who was a total Linux noob, doesn't know what the heck they're doing, and they asked me the same question, I would give them 1,000-yard stare with a glare on my face and say, "Get the heck away."
Don't ask about Alpine Linux.
Yeah, if they asked me about that, I would say, ask me about any other distro, please. Because I have to say, in my entire week of messing with this on a bunch of hardware that I own, it has been, honest to God, the most difficult, hardest, closest thing to LFS I have ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And yes, I'm being that blunt. And I hope to God I never see it again.
Well, now let's not poo-poo on it.
No,
okay,
I'm sorry. This has been the most difficult thing I have ever seen, and really just can't wait to get it off my computer.
Well, that's all right. It's not for everybody. Different strokes, different folks. That's one of the things I enjoy about Linux is that there's a different flavor for a different person.
It's a more terminal or server based. So I think for people to use it to its full extent, they have to be comfortable living in the terminal for the most part.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. Eric, I know you didn't get a chance to try it, but based on the conversations we've had here, what could you say that would recommend? Now you're in a subway, but it's an underwater subway.
Oh wow.
Okay, yeah. So think Disney World, like Epcot Center, whatever that under the water thing, think that.
Okay, I'm there. And some random person walks up and says, "What do you know about Alpine Linux?"
Yes.
I'd say, I know 3 words: small, simple, and secure. Those are the things I know.
Small, simple.
It's definitely not because I read their about page in the last 5 minutes.
When I was going over the about, I skipped over those headings, so nobody else would know.
Yeah, no, it was actually really cool. I mean, so the security side of things, they randomize where in memory executables are to make it more difficult for hackers to find running executables, that's kind of neat, right? I mean, so there's obviously, you think about Linux and the diversity of all the distributions, and of course, some people say there's too many distributions, but this is another good example of a distribution that's purpose-built, and its purpose is for containers. Mm-hmm. And it's like I had said earlier, there had to be a reason. So after I read a little bit there, that seems to be the most straightforward thing, is that it is very small, both in the amount of space it takes up on the disk for the executables and the system itself. It's small in memory. It's simple with the way they've designed, the system itself, and then the security on top of that, which is because a lot of these containers are not public facing, you want it to be as secure as possible. So it makes sense, and it's another great example of the, Linux community and professionals in the space, designing something purpose built for that thing. So
It's a good example of like
why I don't think you'd ever want to run a desktop though. So
it's a good example of a diversity of ideas, the diversity of application, and Alpine Linux specifically hits a specific group or function that is not something I would use regularly, but there are obviously a lot of people that would. Carlos isn't here this week. I think he's out doing something, but he uses Alpine Linux all the time, and it fits his use case for the different things he has going on. And like if he has to spin up some more somethings to do with something, then he uses Alpine Linux to do all that. So
I think we've talked about in the past how we all have different favorite distributions for potentially different reasons, different uses. And so if I'm creating a file server, or I don't know, something where I don't need a desktop environment, I'd be likely to use something like Ubuntu just because that's what I'm comfortable with. But there are lots of options that will foot that bill. Mostly desktop distributions are going to be generalist by nature. They're going to have a lot of sort of extra capabilities to make it simple for someone to just pick up and start doing something without having to go through all of that customization. And I think it's why some people might complain about Arch as being difficult. Arch really isn't that difficult. It's really more about they don't just make choices for you and decisions for you. So whereas something that's like Mint is very sort of end user focused, desktop focused, that anyone can pick up and just start using with very good documentation, so but that's what's great is we have all these choices. We have all these different distributions available to us that have different focus, and that's what makes it so powerful. I remember years ago, and I don't even know which version of Windows it was, going in and tinkering the services and trying to get as much fastest startup I could, or reduce the memory use, or whatever little kind of tweaks I could make to make this like sort of all things to all people system into more of a sort of lean performant system. And it wasn't easy to do because you're undoing a lot of things, but that was at the time I wasn't using Linux, and so it was like I'll do this with Windows, and instead of having to do that, Linux gives you the opportunity to just use a different distro for this application or this environment or this situation. This makes sense, and so here we go. That one gets installed. So,
So I wanted to ask a question. People talk about running in containers. Are you talking about running Alpine Linux in a container, or running containers within Alpine Linux, or is it both ways?
The container OS, the kernel of the container is Alpine. Does that help?
Again, if you listen to Linux user space, it seems the most popular Docker containers are all based on Alpine.
Oh, okay. So I don't understand that part, the kernel and stuff. So that confuses me.
So
I think I understand.
You start with an Alpine base, and then you build stuff on top of it to run the services or whatever you want.
Okay.
So that makes
All
it, like, as Adam says, simple, secure, and faster. Small, or I forgot.
simple.
Okay.
Small, simple, secure. I think is what he said. That order. Small, simple, secure.
Small, simple, secure. Okay, yeah, same
got
thing.
it.
Because
essentially, if you're running containers, you want them to be, again, small and secure. I don't know what simple, but you want them to be small and secure.
Well, the less,
so that's how you distribute it.
The less stuff you have in there, the smaller your
footprint.
Yeah, there's actually a term I was going to use, but basically your surface area for attack is reduced with when you have reduced smaller. So that's the idea. That's what makes it more secure, is you're reducing your surface area for attack.
And also, if it is fast to build, you can update it faster. So most of these containers are updated based on some automation. Again, you don't want to do it manually. So if it is something based on Alpine, you can build and update and push Docker containers pretty fast. Because again, it's faster to build an image from scratch using Alpine.
I might even try this on one of my real hardware to see how it runs anyway with the desktop. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, just for fun. That's the fun of Linux. You can just, sometimes it's more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow. So apply that however you want.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for your contributions to this discussion about Alpine Linux. And if you'd like to make suggestions, if you're listening to the show after the fact or whatever, you can send them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com for any distribution exploration suggestions or application suggestions, topics, anything you like, you can throw them in there. I would love to be able to chat about it because I think these sorts of things are lots of fun. So on the menu for next week, we're going to have an open mic night. So bring your topics, whatever they might be, and let's have a chat about basically whatever you want. So anything that's Linux tech, open source, that's what we're going to have a chat about. All right,
Sounds like fun.
Nate, do you want to do a container exploration night sometime soon? Like Docker, Podman, Systemd and Spawn, Alpine, like whatever?
Yeah, I think that'd be fun to do for sure. And I think probably as a prerequisite, we would probably have to maybe like set this thing up and then maybe get some. So let's say somebody who has no experience doing Docker at all, that we can get them from 0 to 60, like within a couple weeks or whatever.
I think the Docker documentation for Ubuntu, it's good. I think you can get started pretty fast. So it's like there are two things for containers. One is just running them, like setting up the infrastructure on your system to run them. And the second thing is actually creating them. So people can try either one of those two. Like they can do both, but like I think running them is relatively easy, at least for me.
Right. It's easy for you, but
existing containers.
But if other people who don't have that experience, then it might be good to make sure that we can get, like, just so we have like a good amount of people who are able to run Docker at some level, be able to experiment, kind of just understand the basics. That would be that I think would be helpful. So yes, so let's actually put together a plan on that. I would like to do that, and then see who it could make sure we get a goodly number of people to participate in that. And I don't know what goodly means, but insert number for goodly.
Yeah. Containers really confused me at first because I come from the old school virtual machine. Actually, I predate. I started on physical hardware and then moved to virtual machines. And that was a revelation to be able to just fire up a virtual machine and use it however you needed to. And containers are lighter than that even still. But the cool thing about containers to me is that they're sort of like building blocks. And instead of needing that entire huge heavy system with all of the capabilities of a full operating system or distribution, if you will, the Docker or other virtualization systems, basically just you take the piece you need. If you're trying to run a web server, for a web server, you usually need the web server itself. So, you've got that component, that building block, and then you usually need like a database. And so you've got sort of that component. You need storage, somewhere to put to have persistent storage. So you've got that to think about. You need network configuration. So it's all little pieces, and it can be really fiddly, but the way that I sort of made sense of it was to look at a compose file. So composer is a way to, it's almost like an itinerary or like a recipe in a way, where it's like, I need all of these things to make this, if the recipe you're trying to make is a web server, like these are all the ingredients I need to make this web server. And so if you look at the composer file, you could actually just see, piece by piece by piece, like here's a subsection for the network, and then we're going to go through and talk about and define little network parameters and things like that. And then here's a section for the database, and here's a section for the for whatever software that you need. And so it's to my mind, at least, whenever I can see it like that and actually look at the different pieces. So I don't know if anyone's from this conversation, if anyone's curious, like what the containers are and you don't know what they are, you can just go to Docker and download a container, basically, a YAML compose file. And if you have Docker running, you can just fire it up and it has defaults built in and it'll just run. It probably isn't configured the way that you want it to be. And sometimes the page itself on Docker Hub will tell you, like, okay, if you're going to run this, like, here are the things you probably want to change. Anyway, it seems very complicated, and it certainly can be. But if you just think of it in the simplest terms of, again, those what little pieces you need to build this thing, to put this thing together, or to cook this meal, or whatever. So it sounds like a fun show.
You can also use Podman, and I don't know which distributions support Podman, but it's like the easy button for doing containers. So I don't even have to go to Docker Hub. I can just search within Podman. It'll install it and do all the composing for me. And then I barely even know what I'm doing, but it works, and then I'm happy. So there's also that option as well.
Is meant to be a drop-in replacement for Docker. Again, Podman is a Red Hat project, and most Docker containers, like most popular Docker containers, will run as is on Podman. So that's the main goal of Podman, is to be a replacement. So the commands are also the same. So if you know Docker commands, you can basically most of the Podman commands too. Again, I haven't tried Podman, but that's what most people say. It's just a drop-in replacement for Docker.
So I have Podman running on my server, and that's what I use for Docker containers. Although I'm not running any right now. I was, but that's something that Anna can do because it's all point and click, and Anna loves point and click, and so she can participate too. We'll just make sure she understands how to install Podman on her system, and then she can get right to point and clicking. So I was thinking about you, Anna. Totally thinking about you. I hope there's a smile on your face now. All right. So again, if any suggestions, send them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com for topics, applications, distributions, whatever you like. And I would gladly bring them up to the panel. All right. So I did get a suggestion from someone by the name of Kurt Vaughn. Now this is via Eris. He passed this along to me some time ago, and I forgot to include it for several weeks. But just in case he hasn't tuned me out yet, or tuned us out yet, he said it'd be nice if on one of your shows you guys could discuss the future of Linux over the next decade or so. What happens if when Linus Torvalds retires, for example? So what do you think is going to happen over the next decade? So Linus is in his 40s now, I think, or maybe early 50s. He was in college in the early 90s. So yeah, early 50s. Probably going to retire in his 60s, I would imagine, maybe 70s. Who knows? When he's done, he'll retire, right? What do you think is going to happen with Linux over the next decade? Do you see Linus becoming less important, as he's been saying that he's not as important now as he used to be? Do you see fracturing in the kernel? I'm just throwing some ideas out here. Do you think the corporatization of Linux has removed some of the fun out of Linux? What do you think is going to happen over the next 10 years?
So as far as the Linux kernel, I think once Linus decides that he will retire, I think it's pretty much assumed that Greg Crow Hartman will take over. He's the person who's in charge of maintaining the stable branch of the kernel, so he will be taking over for Linus as far as the kernel goes. And then, like, I think Eric was saying, the Linux as a whole it's a giant thing, giant topic, but that's as far as the kernel, I guess.
Well, Linux is a huge topic. It goes, most of us are generally talking about desktop Linux whenever we say Linux, right? I mean, it's not universal. I mean, a lot of us might also have servers or other things as well that incorporate Linux. Maybe you have a Raspberry Pi, maybe there's lots of different things that can run Linux.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of us, when we say Linux, we mean desktop Linux. And I think you have to kind of take the conversation beyond just Linux and say, what is desktop computing going to be over the next decade? There's already sort of been this split between, most people now use a mobile device, right? It's just the way that, like, my wife has a computer. She uses it for work exclusively. Maybe if she's planning a trip or doing something like really complicated that she needs to do, or she needs to print things, like there are definitely tasks that dictate that using a desktop computer is easier. So complicated tasks. Anyway, I was just saying, I think not to get too long-winded, but I think everybody's seen this in their own lives, like especially younger people. Like, computers are not really something that you use unless you need to now. Most people can do all of the things technology related that they want to do on a mobile device, whether that's a tablet or a phone. And that, for most people, is what technology is, right? And so Linux, if you're using Android, technically that's Linux. And so that'll continue. And, certainly everything underpinning all of the internet and all, there's nothing that's going to displace Linux in terms of like running the entire world and space and every other thing that we've ever done technologically in the last 20 years basically has been powered by Linux. And I don't see anything that's going to displace that. It's so important that even without Linus, like it has to continue, right? There's no replacement. So
Correct me if I'm wrong, but a Linux kernel is worked on by people all over the world. Yes, I think.
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
So most of the job that Linus does now is pretty much making decisions on lines of code or whether it's correct or not. Wouldn't that be a correct statement? Or
he's kind of like the product manager in a lot of ways. The product manager is going to set priorities, is going to set the areas of focus, like what's important, what gets in, what doesn't, what gets pushed because it's not ready, that type of thing. That's what he was supposed to do, right? He was supposed to not code anymore. He was supposed to step back, review, manage, that sort of thing. And he kind of, I don't think he's built that way, right? And that's okay. He doesn't have to be. But what I think is important, and what I think he started to do, is recognize that he's not going to be able to do this forever, and that there has to be some way to transition forward.
Yeah.
Whether that's another benevolent dictator, or whether that is, those people around the world, like you said, Colin, a certain set number of them are trusted with the ability to check in code, to make substantial changes. And they're trusted because they've demonstrated, that they deserve that trust. And I think that process continues. The gatekeeper part of it that he's performing right now, that's really important. I don't think it has to be him that's doing it, though.
That's what I was leading to be honest. So Aris said there was another person, obviously, who's learning with Linus as well. Is that what you're saying, Aris?
Yeah, when Linus had to go away for like I don't know if it was a few months or a few weeks, Greg took over for him, and he did everything that he was doing. So he pretty much takes care of like the big stuff, like tries to make sure that they don't take on too many things at once. He's like Eric said, a gatekeeper, and he has like lieutenants that he entrusts a lot of trust on them to verify code for him. And then I think he's mentioned in some interviews that there's certain parts of the kernel he has no idea how they work, and there are certain people who do know, and they have the utmost trust to make sure that whatever goes into that, he defers to them.
I know one of the things that with the Linux kernel is that, well, one thing I should say that Linus is very known for is like he wants good code, and he's very particular about ensuring that there's quality of code, and he's hurt some feelings in the process. And he said, the technology is what's important. And I don't necessarily 100% agree with that. I think that people are important because there's no point in technology without people. So there's somewhere. I mean, I think he's softened in his old age a little bit, but I do think that ensuring that quality code and standards are met, and sometimes feelings have to get hurt a little bit. Ever heard of the admonish sandwich? Anybody ever heard of that? Admonish. Okay, that's where say for instance, Steve, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Hello.
But you're incredibly
How are
late.
you?
You're incredibly late. I don't know what your problem is, but I'm so glad you arrived. See, that's an admonish sandwich. You put something nice. What you want to say is, why are you so late? And then something nice again, so that they're not like in a bad, you're not left with a bad feeling or whatever. Steve obviously has a life and he can't just be here. He works like 160 hours a week and so forth. So we can't put these demands. 159. Okay, so we can't put these demands.
Don't want to
on Steve.
exaggerate. Yeah.
No. So anyway, so that's an admonish sandwich, and I think that I've noticed that in a leadership position, if you do admonish sandwiches, then you can get better results out of adjusting somebody's either behavior or something else like that. I don't think Linus is very good with that, and and that's fine, whatever. But I think that his leadership, in the sense that he's very passionate about the technology, I think that's important. Maybe it doesn't have to be so harsh about it or whatever. I think he's lightened up a little bit. So I guess whatever happens next, as long as the concentration is going to be on developing a good product and not pandering to people, I think that Linux will be fine. Any technology will be fine. But everything does have a life cycle ultimately. And then there's Adam.
Yeah. Oh my.
Is Adam in Wisconsin?
Copycat.
And we don't know if he's in Wisconsin now.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, I'm
It
here.
is.
It's all echoey, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, hey
No, it's
there.
fine.
I'm gonna edit your image and put a cheese head on you. No, I'm super excited for Adam. Congratulations on making a big decision, big change in your life. I did
Yeah,
it.
it's good times.
I did it 15 years ago, and I don't regret it.
'Cause right now we don't have most of our stuff, so it's like kind of empty. You can probably hear it like reverberating, right?
Echo. That's not too bad. No, not really.
Now betting, Mike Piazza. Yeah, sorry.
Whatever.
Funny. Well,
Yeah.
not because Adam showed up, but it is that time to have our last call. So I want to thank you all for being here, especially you, Adam, for showing up right as the about to close the
It
saloon
was the best
up.
time.
Closing up. Yeah.
So thank you very much for being here. I think it's interesting, what the future of technology, the future of anything is. Everything's really uncertain, really. It all comes to what has momentum, what people continue to have passion in, and it will live in some form. So, Mark, I understand that every Sunday you have an enthusiast group, and it's a Linux enthusiast group. And where's this group from?
From Atlanta.
Atlanta. So no
Yeah.
longer is Adam Grubbs going to be a home member of that group, unless he starts a Wisconsin Linux enthusiast group.
That's right.
There's already one.
Well, never mind then.
But since COVID, we are online and anyone is welcome to join us. And those meetings are Sunday from US Eastern 3 to 6 every Sunday. There's no set agenda. Bring your questions. We typically try to help you out with Linux and open source. And sometimes we get off topic, but if you're there to get your question answered, make sure you manage it and get the answers you want.
It's
True.
fun. I've joined for I think maybe two, maybe just one. I can't remember, but it was fun. When I joined, somebody was helping someone else with a problem they were having, so it's kind of interesting just to kind of sit and listen to the troubleshooting, and yeah, it was a good group. It's fun to do if you're hanging out on a Sunday.
Last week we did go through from time to time I like to go through the install of Jellyfin. It's an open source project that
On Docker?
media player, and we installed it in using Docker instructions that were on the web, and then we got into in the media that we I gave everyone access on the call, and the media we loaded was from the Internet Archive. We were bringing down some public domain movies and such that were
Like the Three
that led into
Stooges?
a little bit of a no. We didn't get that one, but I think there was a Popeye the Sailor Man cartoon and some easy stuff. But
Oh, okay.
it did lead into a conversation around copyrights and some of the things that are published on the I forget. There's a list of movies that are U.S. historically important each year, and the part of that thing is to set that list of 15 or I forget how many movies it is, but when those happen, they're choosing videos that are copyright okay to publish. So
Are you talking about the films that the Library of Congress takes into like archive or something?
that's right. Yep. And I forget what exactly they call it right now, but there was a little discussion around that, and but we loaded the videos in Jellyfin, and everyone was able to access the cloud server and play the videos that we had put up on there to share. And then of course at the end I destroyed the cloud server, and someone owes me 9 cents for that. For
All right.
that
Checks in the mail,
trial.
Mark. Checks in the mail.
Yeah. But no, spinning up a cloud server is not that expensive for a couple hours.
That's very cool.
Yep.
Well, that might be good then. So should we do some sort of a Docker challenge in the future? Maybe we should lean on the Atlanta Linux enthusiasts group to help walk people through, because I would not consider myself an expert there. So it might be a bit of a rinse and repeat from last week, but it's something to think about.
It's kind of a cool idea, actually. I mean, maybe it's too soon because it's literally, within like 12 hours or so of this stream, but it would be kind of cool maybe to have I don't know. I'm just saying, if people from here wanted to join there and talk about something from here. I mean, I'm not trying to say we'd invade and take over anything, but
it's fine.
Okay, never mind. I'm saying we can invade.
No, actually, a lot of times I'll take topics that we talked about during the Linux Saloon and then discuss those and show them in a demo in the Ale meeting. And so Alpine Linux, again, the install is so quick, and I may even do that tomorrow with the spin up a cloud server, show Alpine, run through the little setup and the questions and showing the question mark. So yeah, a lot of times I do share because I'm in both programs, and but absolutely open to doing that anytime.
All right, so I'll have to get my thinking cap on and figure out a schedule on that. What I'll do is I'll have Eris tell me when's the best time to do that.
And again, anyone can join and just ask questions. If you want to bring up the topic of Docker, then bring up the topic of Docker.
And know absolutely nothing about Docker, nothing at all. Wouldn't have a clue.
Sounds like
I've just heard about
opportunity. See, we put these two things together, and wrinkles in the brain can occur.
Colin, when I'm trying to learn anything new, I have a really hard time if I'm just trying to understand it theoretically. So I absolutely have to tie it to some sort of real world application. This is why I've had such a hard time over the years with that
Me
whole
too.
Those situations where you try to learn a programming language or something, and they always want to do the hello world. It never works for me. So maybe that would be a good opportunity. Maybe Jellyfin's a good example where you kind of say, okay, I want to have a little media server, and a lot of software is being distributed as containers now because it's just simpler. Maybe not simpler for the layman, but simpler for someone who has that little bit of Docker knowledge that you kind of need. And like Nate's saying, you can run others. There are other ways to run Docker that make it much more simple. So anyway, but having that real world example of something that why would I even want to run a container? and being able to see like how something's put together and how you set it up, and like that would actually be, I think, pretty helpful.
Yeah. Well, for me, I've always been like a hands-on person. Like I can do the theory, but I prefer to do the practical first, then the theory, because I'll understand the theory better after doing practical first. That's just the way my brain's wired. So
Totally get
you
it.
know, that's yeah.
Yeah. I always did really well in my labs for my for my science courses.
Same.
Mm.
Broke a few things too.
Oh yeah.
And we don't record the ALE meetings, so you can make mistakes and come and bring stupid questions, and nothing gets recorded. So
No such thing as stupid questions, only stupid people, right?
yeah, but I make mistakes, and sometimes we learn from that, and it's always good.
Yeah.
But anyways, you can get more information about that group at ale.org. And again, you're welcome to join us on Sundays.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Steve, you're here. And
Yes.
I haven't checked the YouTubes in a bit. So are you doing a coffee clutch tomorrow morning?
I am. I just have to finish setting it up. Yeah, I've been working all week on learning a whole mess of cool things on OBS.
Okay.
It's been a great week with learning, kind of blowing my mind. And I go, oh, wait, I got to start setting up for the stream. So hopefully we'll be up so people can find it in the morning.
Right. So it's going to be at, was it 9 o'clock
Eastern,
Eastern?
8 Central. Be
Okay.
like Rick, 7 Mountain and 6 Pacific,
Gotcha.
and then the rest of the world.
Right.
Yeah, some ridiculous time of 9 o'clock on a Sunday night.
That's awesome.
Only an Australian would find it ridiculous. Vince watches.
Then he goes to bed.
Yeah, Vince probably early as me.
Vince is like, the kids are in bed. Okay.
Excellent. So are you going to be able to share some of the different plugins that you use so that
Yes, I learned also a new software this week. It's been around a while, but I'll save that for the stream. Yeah, I'm going to show how I set up a couple of things. I'm working on kind of revamping things, and I have a new starting soon. Last week was a kind of first glimpse, but I think I kind of finished it up, added some tweaks to it. It's been fun. OBS is just so awesome, and some of the software that and the plugins that you get. Just
I will say your music, your before you start music was very like get you going, pump jam type music. That was fun.
Thank you, sir.
Colin, are you
Don't
doing
want to
any
put you guys to sleep before I do that. So
Right. Exactly. Colin, are you doing any videos? Anything coming up here?
No, not yet. I've taken a couple of months off.
Okay.
Just needed a break.
I understand.
Sometimes you just need a break. Yeah. Because I went on holidays, and so I thought I'd just extend my break a bit more, just clear my head. I think you can just get too much into it, and you just need to just have a break from everything and get that passion back a little bit. So I think you can lose it a little bit.
I can understand that. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard just fitting it in. And if it's not fun, what's the point?
Yeah, that's right. And I've got work to do around the house, and I've watched a lot of YouTubers in the past where they disappear for a while, they come back. I had things to do around the home and all that, because I think you can tend to neglect things that need to be done around the home. Because let's face it, you make a video, it can take me eight to 16 hours to, from preparation right through to finish. And it's a long time. It can take up your whole weekend, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, like I haven't done a coffee to go in a couple of weeks, and because it does take a while, especially to take out my ums and ahs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
understandable. Okay, let's see. Tomorrow, Destination Linux will be streaming live at 1 p.m. There's a Linux user space that is coming out on, I think it's Monday or Tuesday. I don't recall. I can't recall exactly. Hopefully Eris will correct me here. But because I'm a patron, I got the early access, and it was very funny. They go over the history of Nano, And my favorite part of the whole episode, now there's a lot of good content, but the part that like really made me stop and laugh was hearing Leo trying to read Dutch. So it's worth it just for that, for the different nano releases. So check out Linux User Space. I want to say it's
Monday morning.
Monday morning it comes out.
It's Monday morning, and if you want early access, you gotta join the Patreon.
Right.
Yeah.
And the next distro that they're going to be diving deep into is Kali Linux. So that might be on the docket for us as well.
That's one distro that I did actually set up for a friend, Nate. And,
Really? On purpose?
I helped him on a very old Windows 7 AMD laptop, but unfortunately that laptop crapped out on him, and now he's trying to get another laptop, and we've been struggling to find one for him. So,
Well, good luck with that.
thank you. And also, another bit of news I want to mention before we close out
Sure.
is I need to mention my struggles with maintaining Storm OS recently. We are currently recruiting for new help to get the distro off the ground still, because unfortunately I'm doing like 99% of the work to keep it going, and I can't be a one-man job. And my buddy Ricky, who sometimes helps out, is struggling to do that because all he knows how to do is help edit the packages list, which isn't very much. And I showed my workflow to Linux Ninja, and he offered to help out a little bit, but his time is very scarce. So I am struggling up the wazoo to get help, and not a lot of people, at least from what I've talked to, seem to know the way of building Arch other than me. And I just, it's hard to maintain, as you guys know, it's hard to maintain a distro, especially based on Arch, when there's very little documentation outside the Arch wiki, from what I've noticed, and YouTube and things like that. And I mean, I don't want to remain a one-man band forever. That is just hard to do. And I mean, if that's how it's going to continue, then I mean, this distro is going to plummet, and I'm struggling to figure out what to do. And I just, it feels like, I have a Debian ISO, KDE, and XFCE, and that's a lot on one man's plate. And I just, I'm wanting some advice on what to do with this. I mean, I don't want to blow the distro away. It's just, I'm kind of running myself into the ground here, it feels like.
Well, that is a challenge I think that all distros
Mhm.
face at some point in time. I know there's
Yeah.
they all kind of face those very similar challenges, and
Yes.
so they have to either somehow automate their workflows, or
Yes.
or as you excite people about the distribution, you can attract people to it, because
Yes.
a bright light will attract all kinds of insects, especially at night, and you just hope your light isn't so bright because you're on fire. So, yeah, it's a challenge. I don't know that I have any
Yes,
good
it
advice
is,
here.
and yes, and I want to I want to trim down the packages a lot, because it feels like, I'm adding a lot in there when I shouldn't be. And, Arch is, again, supposed to be as minimal as can be. And it feels like, adding in all this extra clutter is just bloating it to an unneeded degree. But yeah, this is just something we can bring up next week during the open chat and just go from there.
Sure.
So,
Be good. Well, thank you so
All right.
much.
no worries.
I'm also on a podcast called Linux Out Loud. We talked last week about something called Lure, which is essentially bringing the AUR to all the distributions. It's very interesting. If you want more on me, you can go to cubiclenate.com. Sometimes I do things. Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network. Check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for being a part of the conversation, both the YouTube stream as well as the Zoom meeting, and for everyone who watches the show after I distill it down. I want to thank you all, and I want to thank all of those involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
See you
Good
later.
night, everybody.
Just the packages you need for your project. Oops.
I wouldn't even say complicated because I think that's the wrong way to say.
Did he freeze or is it just me?
Yeah, he froze or we lost him.
He's frozen.
Frozen solid.
And I think Eric's back.
He is back. He looks like it.
I have no idea what happened. I was talking and I looked at the screen and I saw that I was frozen and everybody else was, and I was like, I don't know if anyone could still hear me or.
Excuse me a minute.
You tear it down?
Sorry, my son